All right, everybody, welcome back. And you know exactly what time it is. It is time to go through the news stories of the week. And today I am joined by constitutional law attorney and former senior legal advisor to President Trump, Jenna Ellis. And he is a filmmaker and also a Tennessee congressional candidate who I endorsed and loved so much, not loved past tense, love currently, Robbie Starbuck. Welcome back. All right, so to keep things especially interesting, none of us know the topics that everybody else has brought to the table. We should call it the table or something like that. And I am going to start because I'm very disturbed and I'm laughing, but not really laughing at the Muppet Babies. Remember that? Remember the Muppet Babies you grew up with and maybe you could leave your kids watching Muppet Babies? Yeah, no longer. Let's just watch what the Muppet Babies is promoting today.
We met the most amazing princess, but they ran away. And all they left behind was this.
Everyone, there's something I need to tell you. The princess who came to your ball tonight was me. I'm Gonzarella.
But Gonzo, why didn't Vu tell us?
Because you all expected me to look a certain way. I don't want you to be upset with me.
I am upset with you, Gonzo. I am upset with you. This is just... I look at this and we talk about it all the time. We talk about this. Nobody listened. The kids are definitely being attacked. This kind of messaging, if I was sitting here thinking that my child was watching something that was for children and looked around and saw them promoting the transgender, like I would go absolutely mad. And you realize they know that children's brains are developing. They want them to know it's an option. Kids are monkey see, monkey do. Yep. So this to me is a direct attack on children. This is predatorial in my opinion.
100%. It's child abuse. And I can tell you from the Hollywood perspective, having been a director and producer in Hollywood, these people hate us. They hate us so much. That's why what you're doing and what Daily Wire is doing is so important, because for too long, conservatives have not understood the importance of messaging this way to our society in total, including children. The left understands it. It's why you can't go to a movie now with your child without seeing some sort of left-wing messaging. In the latest Scooby-Doo movie, they give references to Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a hero of women's rights multiple times, dress up as her for Halloween. Then they pitch Tinder to the kids and bash on masculinity. They do these things on purpose to shift the window over to acceptable thought only being on their side. We have to do the same thing. So that's why we've got to keep doing the stuff you're doing and continue expanding it into every avenue.
Yeah, well, and we have to keep just standing up for truth, because this is all about our children and the next generation. And we've seen how, as Robbie said, entertainment is always about targeting children and to normalize evil. And for all of the culture and the left that says we have to tolerate everything, no, we don't. We don't have to tolerate evil, and we can stand up and say, you know what, judgment, discernment, those words used to actually mean something, having good judgment and being a discerning person. And I am going to judge that. I'm going to say that that's evil. I'm going to say that that's wrong, that's anti-biblical, and stand up for the truth with courage. And if people call you names, who cares? This is all about making sure that we keep the truth of the moral parameters for our society and for our kids.
And of course, the idea here is also to undermine parents, right? To say, like, your parents, if they don't agree with this messaging, then they're bigoted. To get children, get them into the school systems, kind of say, this is the new thought process. Your parents are old school. It doesn't make sense. And this is what bothers me so much, because to me, it's no longer safe to just give your kids to a public school. Like, unless you literally know every document that they're reading, if you understand exactly what they're learning, it's no longer safe when they're pretending that gender doesn't matter and you can wake up one day and you can be Cinderella, right? You can be Cinderella, you can be a woman, and we're seeing now kids increasingly making that decision. And I say making that decision because statistics defy reality, right? We didn't just go from like one trans person, Chaz Bono, and a whole documentary because it was so extraordinary, to now 1 in 6 kids is thinking that they're non-binary. This word didn't exist when we were growing up. The non-binary doesn't exist. There are children learning that there's 26, 27, 28, 40, an infinite amount of genders. And this is scary because men, if we don't have a society that believes in masculinity, that believes in gender difference, you're just going to see that the disappearance of manhood means that a society can't survive. You can't survive with a bunch of men walking around in dresses, unsure of which bathroom to go into.
Right, absolutely. And you also have to make sure that femininity survives in culture and traditional marriage and the traditional family unit. And what's so scary about this is that we're seeing judges actually go to children and say, your feelings matter more than your biology, and to say that your feelings matter over facts, and to say that children can make these life-altering decisions for themselves over and above their parents' wishes. Parental rights under our Constitution and under a system of just sanity says that parents are responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of their children, and they're the ones that absolutely have to protect their children, not be at the will and the mercy of a 6-year-old who says, I came home and I'm confused one day because, Susie gave me some nail polish and I think I'm a girl. You can say, no, Tommy, you are a boy and here's why, and actually put those parameters in place. And so when we have government that's wanting to step in and say, I'm the parent, that's where we get a lot of off-course legal rulings, and that's where Canada has been. The United States absolutely needs to have a firm line on that.
And you're exactly right that this is tied into education, period. This is why we just saw a 4th grader this week go up to a school board and say, my teacher told me to do this equity survey and not to tell my parents. Yeah. It made me uncomfortable. It made the whole class uncomfortable. That's why this week a Harvard professor went on TV and had the gall to say that sex is defined by science, by biology, and that there are males and females. And then the school diversity and inclusion officer went out and bashed her on social media. This stuff is all tied together because at its premise, you can't replace a generation of voters unless you remove their parents' authority. And that's what they want to do. And the fact that it takes, a guy with a man bun is standing up saying, we need masculinity, okay? That should tell everybody something. That at this point in time, I'm considered a very masculine person because I speak out. That should tell people something. We need help. We really do.
We will get right back to the show in just 1 second. But first,
prices are up and they just keep going up. Gas, milk, lumber, have you noticed it? Because I certainly have. Inflation is here. It was 5.4% in June, and it's coming faster than our government is prepared for. Their solution is to stick their heads in the sand, and you have to make sure that that isn't your solution. Protect your savings against inflation by diversifying into gold and silver with Birch Gold Group. If you haven't reached out to Birch Gold to diversify your IRA or 401k into a precious metals IRA, then you should do it today. Text Candace to 484848 and get a free info kit on how to protect your savings. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the BBB, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers. Talk to them. Let them help you safeguard your retirement savings. Text Candace to 484848 to claim your free, no-obligation info kit and to speak with a precious metals expert on holding gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Again, text Candace to 484848 and protect your savings today.
now let's get back to the show.
Robbie, what topic did you bring for us today?
Well, I had your producers put together a bunch of clips of all of these tyrannical lunatics in our media, and who it's kind of funny, but it's not, because they're running our country. And they're treating a class of Americans like second-class citizens, honestly, not even like people. So let's check it out. And I want people to think about this while they're watching this. Ask yourselves when in history, when people have treated other human beings like this in their country, when they were the good guys and when it didn't end horribly in a dark, dark, dark place.
You got to start telling people, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this office or this place of business. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come to work. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this gym. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't get onto this airplane. It has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with liberty. You don't have the freedom and the liberty to put other people in jeopardy.
If we can just get everybody vaccinated that's not vaccinated, that's refusing to get vaccinated, that's living vaccine free and impacting the rest of us. It's like drunk drivers. You don't have the right to go out and drink and drive and put everybody else at risk, including your own life at risk.
If you're unvaccinated and you're going around without being tested, you are an arrogant, selfish SOB.
You got proof of that?
Wow, I just found out I'm arrogant, selfish, and a drunk driver. That was weird.
You're a criminal. You're a criminal. Like, break that down. You are a criminal. They're putting you in a class of criminals. You're a disgusting human being. That's what they're trying to frame on you, is this like you're dirty. When have they done in history? This has always been done to people when the next, sort of thing to come down the line is really horrible. And we've got to stand up now. Honestly, I've told people this. Even if you believe in the vaccine, even if you're getting it, I don't begrudge whatever choice somebody makes, but if you believe in it, this is a freedom issue. If you believe in your fellow countrymen and you believe in their right to have a choice in this country, this is it. This is the time to stand up and say, this is not okay, whether you choose to do this or not. I may even vehemently disagree with somebody not getting it or getting it. Stand up. And stand for something. Stand for freedom in this country, because this is it. If we don't hold it, it's gone. There's no other place to go to. Once the government can force inject something into your body, once you have no body autonomy, and this is not an argument for pro-choice, as people like to say, because that has two bodies. You have another person growing inside of you. But when you do not have your own individual body autonomy, and they can start forcing, something inside of your body or saying you can't go anywhere and you can't live, you don't have any freedom is gone. There's just zero freedom.
Well, and this is literally the new segregation, because they are trying to diversify into two different classes of people and create a new loathsome class based on your vaccination status. And this is the civil rights issue of our day. And I'm not saying that lightly, because, there have been so many champions throughout American history that have said, no, civil rights matter in a lot of different contexts, whether it's your race, your gender, all of these other things that are protected based on your immutable characteristics, and also your choices, like your choice to freely exercise your religion. That is protected in this country, that you can't be discriminated on that basis. And so when we look at this type of rhetoric to say that, you are an evil person and you are presumed basically criminal, this is getting to where the government thinks that it can compel you and force you into activity that you expressly have a right to refuse.
And listen, I will, I've been very open with everybody on this show, online. Like, I made a personal decision not to get the vaccine. I don't tell people what they should or should not do. That's not a call to say nobody get the vaccine. If you made it for whatever reason, you decided to get that vaccine, good for you. I think every one of your medical decisions should be personal and should be on your own. And now it seems to me this is coercion when you're saying you're not going to be able to get a job, you're going to have to wear a mask forever. This is and the fear, the amount of fear that is going behind all of this just made me uncomfortable. And if that was my feeling, it kind of feels like it got converted into a fact when I just felt like this feels a lot more sinister to me when we saw trending over the weekend. I think that we might have the headline that they're now saying, the CDC released new data that shows vaccinated people who contract the Delta variant of COVID-19 may spread the virus just as easily as unvaccinated people. Well, okay, so now try to explain to me why you're segregating society. They can't, and they won't.
And
worse than they can't, they won't.
And they won't. And even in cases like I've personally represented churches like, for example, John MacArthur out at Grace Community Church in California, who refused to shut down his church and say, no, we have the free exercise of religion to be able to gather appropriately. And LA County does not want to put their health officers into depositions with us because they know they can't back it up with the data. All they're doing is trying to come out and say, we are going to coerce and manipulate you, because they want to establish a precedent that if they can compel you based on anything that they say is under the auspices of health and safety, what can't they do next?
Right. That's it. It's all about health now, so you can't question it. And it's scary to go back in history and think all of these evil dictators and totalitarian regimes, what if they had just said, it's for your health and safety? And many of them did, by the way. Many of them did.
Yeah. And it's not just this. They also came out this week, and CNN ran a story 48 hours ago saying that admitting that the vaccine could actually cause variants, and not only cause variants, but cause vaccine-resistant variants.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is based off of the CDC's data. So this is not a conspiracy. This is, you are reading it. This is all about what the CDC is actually saying, which defies what they're trying to do to make this systemic.
And 6 months ago, they would have kicked you off social media for saying the exact thing that they're now admitting on CNN, that a vaccine can do this. They were saying, oh, it can't do that. They were saying before somebody with a vaccine couldn't spread the virus. All these things were misinformation before. Now they're not. And with their new misinformation rules, why are we not getting all the tweets taken down of Joe Biden and his administration saying that all this stuff wasn't possible, and now it is? Now they admit it is. It's pure lunacy. And if people can't see that this is all being done, everything we see in front of us to control the conversation and shut people up, if they stray even just in a little bit away from the narrative that they've approved, then you've lost it at this point. It's very clear what they're doing. And it's time people wake up, stand up, because this is it. I said yesterday, I've had dozens and dozens of doctors reach out to me saying, thank you for speaking up and just standing on science and not being
You're
bombastic.
censoring doctors. Like, that makes me especially uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Anything that's honest would require a fair debate, right? So if it's the truth, why can't the doctors that are saying that they've seen something different in hospitals, or doctors that are trying to make you understand treatments that have worked, like when they were censoring doctors that were saying, oh, I gave this person this medicine and it knocks the COVID out, and they censored that information because they always wanted people to believe that the vaccines were the solution and that there could be nothing else but the vaccines, hydroxychloroquine.
Yep.
And then later on, they said, okay, yeah, no, it does to be showing. It now seems to be showing that this can help to treat it. But you censored that information that could have saved lives. Why do that?
And you know what's scary is these doctors aren't saying, I'm going to be fired from my job and that's why I'm not doing it. They're saying, I'm going to have my medical license taken away if I speak up on the science and on my patient experiences, the patients I'm actually treating. I will lose my medical license and I won't have anywhere to go after that. And that's why they're not
actually
speaking
lost
up.
their license standing up and advocating for truth.
Yep.
My colleague Rudy Giuliani. That's what they're doing. If you have a professional license in any capacity, whether it's an attorney, it is a medical professional, and you go against their narrative on any issue, then they want to remove your ability to advocate for just your position. And your opening, by the way, was absolutely brilliant, because that's exactly what they're trying to do, the left is trying to do, is to coerce our society so that we don't know anymore, our young people don't know and haven't been raised in a generation that understands that America stands for freedom of speech, freedom of association, and free exercise of religion. There are first freedoms that are enumerated in our First Amendment. Why? So we can do exactly what we're doing right now, which is speaking together about truth. And we have to have that free marketplace of ideas. Otherwise, it's just propaganda and it's indoctrination.
And I will say, and this is what I have felt from the very beginning, is that this narrative starts to defy common sense. Like, there is such a thing as basic psychology and human behavior. You touch the oven, it's hot, and then you never touch the oven with your finger again because you realize, ouch, that actually hurt. If this was, as they have tried to present it, the bubonic plague, right? If this was really like, oh my God, people are dying everywhere, then you would not have to do this to get people to take the vaccine. During the bubonic plague, which took out, a third of the continent of Europe, literally, right? A third of the continent of Europe. If they said, by the way, here's the medicine and the vaccine that will stop it, people would have been lined up for days to get it. Days. Yep. There wouldn't be empty clinics. There wouldn't be empty driveways. You wouldn't have to now try to coerce people to take it, because human behavior dictates that if something is harming you, you want to make it better, right? I have asthma. You don't need celebrities to take their inhalers to convince me when I'm having an asthma attack to take mine. It just defies common sense.
And you wouldn't have all of these people. Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely false. It's political theater. It's, as Rand Paul called out Dr. Fauci and said, this is a noble lie. You want to coerce people and choose for them what you think is best for them. So you're going to lie to them to coerce them to do it. They're not following it themselves. They know the truth.
Right.
You're so spot on. I just want to clap. This comparison, that they're making with COVID. Alan Dershowitz just went on TV this week and said that this was worse than smallpox. Okay, smallpox killed over 100, I think it was over 100 million people, okay, with smallpox. And he was serious. This is the thing, I don't care if you don't like the vaccine or if you do like it. If you're not uncomfortable with that, then there's something wrong with you.
My hope is honestly that it's having the opposite effect. I believe it is, and that people are going to start to then question backwards. So I know for me personally, I've just sort of given them a blanket card. I've just trusted I've trusted the science. I've just thought Big Pharma was always out to try to help people. And now I think I've done a lot of research in the Post now, and I've looked into just a lot of things, and I'm more educated than I've ever been about Big Pharma, about the Big Pharma collusion, about the evils of Big Pharma. And I think that we're seeing that today. And my hope is that everyone will do their own research, because the evil didn't begin today. We're just seeing it for the first time.
Thanks to Daily Wire and other people who are willing to speak the truth.
We'll be right back to this episode of Candace in just 1 second. But first,
did you ever read the fine print that appears when you start browsing in incognito mode? It says that your activity might still be visible to your employer or your internet service provider. To really stop people from seeing the sites you visit, you need to do what I do and use ExpressVPN. Think about all of the times that you've used Wi-Fi at an airport or hotel without ExpressVPN. Every site you visit could be logged by the admin of that network. And that's still true even when you're in incognito mode. And in the US, they're legally allowed to sell that data to advertisers. ExpressVPN is an app that encrypts all of your network data and reroutes it through a network of secure servers so that your private online activity stays private. ExpressVPN works on all devices and is also super easy to use. All you have to do is open the app, tap one button to connect, and that is it. Your browsing activity is secured from prying eyes. So stop letting strangers invade your online privacy. Protect yourself at expressvpn.com/Candace. Use my link at expressvpn.com/Candace to get 3 extra months free. That's expressvpn.com/Candace to learn more.
Now, back to the show.
Well, along these same lines, and it actually exactly what you just said, Candace, that so many people are going to rise up. We're in fact seeing that all over the world. And so these are some of the protests that are going on in Germany, France, and other places.
Yeah, that's in Germany, right? And I do want to explain what's going on, because if you're not paying attention, you should be following the hashtags. There is a universal uprising against these restrictions, and Germany in particular, they put in place a policy that you're not even allowed to protest at all. And these people are standing up and they're running outside, and they are being beaten, bludgeoned by police officers because nobody does not see better than the Germans. And they have been basically holding them down. And this is terrifying to see, but they've said they've had enough. Again, not the behavior that you would expect from people that are all going to die from a virus. Wouldn't you stay inside? Would you really go maskless to a protest to walk?
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing that is so great about this is that people are not just sheep anymore. They're not just following along with this. And we can contrast what the world is doing to the protections that we actually have in the United States. So many people ask me, well, how can we combat this and what's the legal argument? Well, not only do we have constitutionally protected rights that say that, the government, our federal government, has limited specific enumerated powers, but even more than that, federal law for this particular vaccine, it's only under the emergency use authorization. That law, the United States Code, specifically says that under the health secretary's authorization, there has to be informed consent and the right of each individual to refuse. And even though places like Germany and others, they need to push back as much as they can, absolutely, and according to their law. But here in the United States, we should be proud to be Americans because it's the government's obligation, duty, and responsibility to protect our rights, including the right to refuse.
Absolutely.
And, if you don't mind, I'm going to speak directly to the American people, okay? Americans, wake up, learn your lesson now, okay? Don't wait until we get to that point where people are knocking on your door, where the government is trying to stop you, okay, from being able to protest. This is what happened in my family's home country of Cuba. People waited till it was too late. Stand up now. We should be seeing these sorts of demonstrations in the street and civil disobedience from people saying we will not comply now before they end up at your door, before they end up telling you you're not allowed to protest. Do it now. Don't be late. In fact, you know what? We should do it here in Nashville.
Right.
We should do one here, and we will, because we've had enough.
Yeah.
And come to D.C. and help with mine.
Which is
and we'll
interesting,
do
by
that.
the way, because it's literally the bubonic plague, and yet the people at the border seem to be able to come over in droves. Hundreds and thousands of people are coming over the border. They're not wearing masks. They're testing positive for COVID, and the administration's A-okay with that, right? And again, that is what points to the fact that there is something more sinister going on. Trust your gut. I'm a big believer in trusting your gut. If something feels funny, if something feels wrong, go with your gut. I do have one more topic that I want to bring. You may have seen this floating around on Twitter, and this brings it back to how our children are really being targeted right now by adults. This is a real tweet from a real journalist. She writes for all sorts of publications. She wrote, "Someone needs to create porn for children. Hear me out. Young teens are already watching porn, but they're finding hardcore aggressive videos that give a terrible view of sex. They need entry-level porn, ! A soft core site where everyone asks for consent and no one gets choked, etc. Instant backlash, but don't worry, she clarified. To clarify, children means under 18. I'm talking about 14, 15, 16-year-olds. Like, oh, okay, I'm so glad you clarified that you were talking about children. Like, that you were talking about children. What are you, 8th grade, 9th grade? When you're 14 years old, you're talking about children. And then she got even more backlash for days later. It went viral. And now she's like, oh, that's literally all I meant. There should be porn that focuses on consent. And we should stop pretending that under 18-year-olds aren't watching it, but I get that my wording was ... abysmal. And what's so funny is that she then, as this was going viral on Twitter and everyone was hitting her, she pretended it's our fault, right? Like, I'm not getting swept up into another Twitter cesspool. So I deleted the tweet before it picks up steam. Like, you deleted the tweet, not because you realized it was wrong, but because it was a Twitter.
Because we're too mean.
The Twitter is a cesspool? No, you are the cesspool. You are the cesspool.
Your idea was just that awful. You needed to
Leftism is the cesspool. This is what they want to do to children, okay? First of all, they don't believe that a teenager is a child anymore. They think that they actually should have autonomy from their parents and be able to make different decisions, be able to go get an abortion, be able to go do things without parental consent. So this is naturally in line with their way of thinking. They believe that this should be legal.
These are some headlines, by the way. If you thought like, oh, maybe she just had a bad day and it was a weird tweet. I mean, these are some of her headlines. How naturism got hip, from naked yoga to book groups. Someone needs to create porn for children. As Kevin Bacon's wife reveals, he turned beauty therapist for her. Is it crazy to let your partner give you a bikini wax? I admit it, I hate men. She also, the naked lunch. You're invited to strip down and zoom in for cocktail parties, yoga classes, and more. And she also did like a nudist thing that she was writing about. So like, she is very sexualized, which is ironic, of course, because her mother is actually a part of the Conservative Party in the UK, or was a part of the Conservative Party in the UK. And so I feel like she's got like preacher's daughter syndrome, where she's going radically the other way. But these are the people that are now in positions of power to be able to write articles to children.
And they're not only in the leftists that are the cesspool, it's also the Republican Party, because you have Ronna McDaniel, who was the chairperson, and this was the other topic I brought here today as well, is that she actually tweeted in support of Pride Month. You had atheists for Trump that were at CPAC. You have the transgender MAGA drag queen. You have all of these things that are supposedly under the banner of big R Republicanism that is actually DNC light. Where are the Republicans that are standing firm saying, wait a second, this is not our party. We have to contrast based on true conservatism. And I've been very publicly, I left the Republican Party because I am no longer willing to say that that big tent is actually conservatism, and that people who will out and out lie about not only what they've done to Donald Trump, which is the Republican Party, but that they're willing to endorse this kind of soft porn sort of stuff. If Ronna McDaniel, as the chairperson of the RNC, is willing to endorse the LGBT agenda, that is not a party that I'm willing to be a part of. And by the way, when I called her out on one of her lies, she blocked me on Twitter. We actually have that tweet. So I said, update, I guess she doesn't want to be confronted about the RNC lying. So this is the party that supposedly represents conservative values. It doesn't anymore. We have to make sure that we are always speaking the truth, and that we aren't letting just the Republicans move further and further left so that we don't even have a party. Where are the people in Congress, I hope Robbie gets there, to actually fight for our values?
I think a lot of people are scared, and what you're hitting at is really important. And I don't know too much about what went on with you and Ronna, but you are hitting at the fact that there are a lot of people who, like you, who are saying, what the heck is going on with this party? This isn't the party that I signed up for. And they feel that we are just sort of bending closer and closer to the left and saying, oh, well, it's a big tent philosophy. Well, this is where big tent gets you. Like, that woman, to me, tweeting something like that, this is a child predator. She's obsessed with sex. She talks about sex all the time, but she's specifically interested in introducing sex to young children, to minors. That's not a normal thought process for an adult woman to have. Like, oh my gosh, we need child porn. That's not something that you go through your day, like cup of coffee, and oh my God, genius idea, children need pornography. Like, there's something wrong and perverted about her mindset. There's something perverted going on.
Very perverted.
Evil.
This is exactly what they're doing. They're priming for that, and that is coming 100% from the left, and they're going to back it full-throatedly. I will say this, and I know we've had to do a lot of things today reminding people we're not doctors, so I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist, but at the very core of this issue with this lady, I think is one very simple thing. She needs to stop watching porn. I think that this all stems from her watching too much porn. I think that's what's going on.
That is so well said, and I think that is a perfect place to end, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Great conversation. Make sure that you guys keep up with both Jenna and Robbie on social media, and stick around, because up next, I will be sitting down with the one and only Dr. Drew.